Hey guys, welcome back to the Ice Project Soundboard edition, back after a couple of weeks. So I'm pretty excited for this, but roll the intro.
Welcome to the Ice Project. Welcome to the Ice Project.
Jade Speen, and welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Welcome back to you too. I missed you when you were away. I feel like it went for so long. Probably went quick for you, but
Yeah, no, it's fun. Like I enjoy traveling. It's like where I get our perspective for
Yeah.
our business. So, and I just always feel calmer when I come back. So,
any observations overseas, like anything that you picked up that, you know, a bit ahead of the times or creativity wise?
I think in terms of clothing, like I think they're always like a year and a half, 2 years ahead.
Yeah.
So probably lessons from the past is like I try and jump into trends a little bit too early.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so
you just kind of keep them, do you sort of log it now and then revisit it like a little bit down the track when we're in that season and whatnot?
yeah, I think so. But
Yeah.
then like like Australia's pretty behind in terms of fashion, and we've talked about this when you lived in New York and when you seen
Yes.
stuff there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
everything.
it was-
Everything. Even like the way they eat, like salad bars and stuff like that, self-service, like that was all way ahead of us in Australia.
One thing I love about Australia is it's like a morning place. Like there's not many places in the world where, and like when I was in Japan, like I'd wake up at like 7:30, 8, go to the gym by like 9:30, 10, and then my day wouldn't really start till like 12. So
Yep.
cafes wouldn't open till 11 till 12. So I do love where we live. I think I appreciate Sydney a lot more once I start to travel.
Yeah, definitely. And the beaches as well. I saw something on Instagram. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a TikTok, and this guy was obviously from the beaches, and he'd traveled overseas, and he was walking on like rocks, and he's like, what the fuck is this? This isn't a beach, but like it is in most places in the world. Like we get blessed with the best ones here, but overseas you like, oh, is this a coastal walk, is it?
Yeah, that was like, we're in the south of France with Normie, and they're like, oh, let's go down to the beach. And like you said, it was just straight rocks.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, where do you put your towel? And you just lying on the back. And
Yeah, like how does this work? So you didn't, did you exercise and shit over there, or were you mainly just
I
like,
started getting into a rhythm, like hung up with one of my mates, and he's like very diligent in everything
Yeah.
he does. So super inspiring back into training now. I know training's a big part of everything you do.
yeah, I've been back lately. I went back to the yard. I'm finding that for me, like, I really like just giving it 110% every session. Like I don't like doing just like cruisy sessions, and I find that you can only do so much of that in a specific time block. Like you can't be hammering yourself for an hour and a half. So I like those classes where you go in, you get it done, you walk out and you feel just absolutely the best. And my work hours just continue to increase, and I can be at the computer till like midnight. So that means if I train for an hour in the morning, I could genuinely be like sitting for most of the day. So I feel good with that, you know? And I think getting to a class, starting at a particular time, in and out, give it your all. I just love that kind of dynamic.
Does it ruin your work day, or does it give you more energy?
More. I feel like I get way more out of it. Like I love just getting in there. And I think also training is what you make of it. Like even when you do some sort of like class style. So I train at the yard, and it's sort of like they have a turf and a rig, and turf is sort of like your conditioning sort of style training, and then rig is your strength training. So you can sort of chop and change between the two depending on how you feel. But like all things, like you can go harder, you can give it more weight. Like it's kind of like up to you as well. And yeah, I just think that for that 1 hour a day, that it's my time. It's like for my mind, my body. I think it's like life changing.
What time do you train in the morning?
I usually do either the 5 a.m. class or the 5:50 class.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
just get your day set up. doesn't it?
100%. I found that when I first moved back to the Shire, so when I first moved to Yowie Bay, I didn't have that routine. Like at Coogee, it was always like wake up, coastal, coffee, that sort of movement. But then when I moved, it kind of jolted that routine, and I just found myself like waking up and opening my laptop and then like really not moving like at all. And even like little things like not eating. Like I'm someone that like, if I train, I'll be quite, breakfast, lunch, dinner, calorie count, enough protein, enough fiber, all that kind of jazz.
You should know enough about all that.
Yeah, I do. I should. You'd think so. So I find when one thing falls apart, it kind of dominoes on other areas. It's kind of like training falls, nutrition usually falls. Nutrition falls, you're more likely to say yes to going out, yes to the alcohol, like all that kind of stuff. So I feel like just getting one thing in order gets kind of everything in order. That's how I feel about training. I think it sets everything up.
What about drinking at the moment? You been drinking or anything?
Not heaps. I really am trying to do the whole like on the occasion, not just like, oh, I'm out for dinner and you know they say, do you want the wine list or something, and I'm like, why not? Like I'm trying to do less of YOLO why nots and more just like I've got something on, you know, and just timing, you know, not weekly, maybe monthly, you know, trying to do that sort of thing. But Jenna's talking about doing 75 hard, which I know you've done.
I was kind of iffy because I got COVID halfway through it. So I was
That's
training,
right.
but I
I
wasn't
remember
training.
Yeah. So Jenna, it's her birthday. It was her birthday last week and she's got her birthday party this Friday night. And she's talking about after the birthday bash doing 75 hard. So I'm thinking maybe I'll do it in June.
Yep.
June, July, August. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I found myself like after that little travel, obviously I had a couple nights out there, nothing crazy, but like I felt like I've had this really good purpose again, or like I'm driven to do certain things in different areas in life. And that temptation isn't really there for me at the moment.
Yep. And you go through phases like that. I feel like whenever we're together, we're like, how long's it been for you? How long have you not drank for? And then why not? Let's do it. But like, yeah, I feel as though if you can like sort of space it out a little bit. Matt said it really well. Like he was a bit of a party boy before we met and now he's very, very settled and it's just on a rare occasion for him that he'll drink. He's not a beer kind of guy. So he doesn't just go out.
Yeah, he gets those
like
random little cocktail things.
Yes, he gets cocktails. He does. But like, he said to me even not that long ago, he's like, the way I look at like drinking monthly is that means I'm drinking 12 times a year, which I can handle. And I think that's, you know, it doesn't make it excessive and it doesn't make it too much. So, I think like that sort of monthly thing is quite good.
I read a cool quote the other day that said, a man without purpose seeks pleasure.
So true.
Yeah, and I found that whenever I'm in those little phases,
you resort to like going out and being social. I think it's so true. Like, I feel similar. We're usually always on the same wavelength with this kind of stuff, but I feel like in a similar place to you right now, just really like focused, really got, I think a plan is always really good. I think sometimes when things are up in the air, something might have happened outside of your control or, you know, just it's not quite going the way that you want it to go. I think you can get real easy in a rut. And I think having that really strategic plan, like I can see the next 6-12 months now and it's taken a little bit to kind of there's been many variables in the last couple of years since I've left Evolution, so I feel as though
and you start to get like foresight too. So so my week's sort of really planned out now in terms of training. Yeah. So like I'll get to night time and I'll look at my training for the next day. I'm like, fuck, I better start getting to bed. And it reminds me when I was in football where because I always had something at the end of the week that we had to work towards. Like I'd treat my Monday to Friday like a little bit different. So I sort of feel like getting back in that routine's been really good for me.
I swear by it. I genuinely swear by training. I just think that it is the crux. I've said it so many times on this podcast. I say it all the time. I think it sounds like a broken down record, but I just think that training is really this for me and for a lot of people, it's like usually the start of good and greatness, or you know, either going down south real fast type thing. So I think it really starts.
I said on the podcast yesterday, like my key indicator is when I drive to work, there's always these cyclists on the road, and if that cyclist is annoying me, that means my morning's been off. And like even though the events are exactly the same, there's just a middle-aged guy jumping on the bike trying to get exercise, and he's half taking up the road. Where if I've worked out, I'll just happily sit behind him.
And cruise. And,
if not, he's half thinking about trying to hit him.
Yeah. I think too of a morning, like you can be, everyone kind of that trains wakes up with the intent to move. Like, but if it doesn't happen for some reason of another, you kind of feel as though you've let yourself down a little bit. And sometimes the whole change in attitude can just be like pure just got the shits with yourself because you didn't make it happen and you could have made it happen. Like, I think that's also a 70% of the time scenario too.
Do you know a little habit I've got back into is doing Wordle? Do you do that?
No, but I knew that you had a little moment with it back in the day. See you at a Bondi cafe just like,
I just like, it's like a bit of a challenge and the mental thing. Like instead of sitting on your phone and scrolling through Instagram, I just sit there, have a coffee and jump on Wordle and try and get an early win for the day. Yeah,
do you know what I've realised? I don't even really like coffee. Like I like the experience.
What the fuck did you just say?
I genuinely don't like the taste of coffee. Like
what?
Heaps. Like I can handle. I have coffee. I drink coffee, but like I'm not like like delicious, caffeinated, like just running through my veins. I don't get off on it like most people, but I like the experience that it gives. I love nothing more than sitting down in a coffee shop of a morning and just getting your head together for the day and like, what's today for me? What am I doing?
Now you say that, like when I was in like Japan or when I go to Bali, like I don't have coffee.
Yeah, so it's part of I feel like it sits within a morning routine more than it does on its own as like something you rely on. I think I personally think the coffee experience versus the coffee itself is like two totally different things for me.
But like KFC, yeah, the idea of KFC is actually better than
Dirty
KFC
bird.
itself. All right, so
Yeah.
a couple of topics that have been happening around
Yeah.
Australia. We're into business. Heartbreak. We'll start with the heartbreak first.
I
Milk
know.
run.
Yes.
Down and out.
I'm
gone.
shattered. Now, you and I were onto this being little
I thought we were the first. I'm like,
Eastern
no,
suburbs yuppies. We were onto it straight away.
with no time.
And we could not believe. Logistically, I think that we even spoke about like how can they get it to us in literally I
Under
reckon
10 minutes. It was under 10
it
minutes.
was
at the
under
start.
10, but there was some days where I was getting it at like 4 and stuff, and I was like, what? I just placed this order. It was awesome. I don't cook. I'm not much of a cook, just largely because I don't like it and I'm not good at it. So I feel like if you're a cook, you've spent all day preparing something, or you've got something in the slow cooker, or you know what you're having for dinner. But I'm like last minute with that kind of stuff because I've got no skill to
Fishbowl.
Yes, exactly. But Milk Run was a bit of a savior because I used to order Matt like a steak or something, just say, what do you want for dinner? Order a steak, it'll be there in 10 and off we go. Happy as Larry. So it was like the concept, I think that's what got me. It solved a problem. It solved a problem. Yeah.
And a lot of people's problem is time and efficiency.
Totally.
So like it was interesting, like the under 10 minutes, and obviously when they launched and Volley launched, there was a bit of competition there.
Yep.
Much like Deliveroo and Uber Eats. Now Deliveroo's
Is
gone.
Volley still going?
What?
Is Volley still going?
Nah, gone. So they were first to go, and then Deliveroo
Sad.
went far after that, and then obviously Milk Run's gone for that. But obviously when they were in a competition, they're probably like, what's our value proposition? So it used to be like, let's get there in 10 minutes.
Yeah, 100%.
Then once,
and then once that went.
I reckon once Volley went, they're like, all right, cool, we've got a bit more like lead time here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had minimum orders up to like $20. We're like, what's going on here? So
Yeah, what's happening? It just kind of changed landscape a little bit. Like the wow factor that was there at the start couldn't
Which
be
was
maintained,
speed,
which
yeah.
it couldn't be maintained with scalability, and that often happens. Like I sort of apply the same kind of sort of concept to the Equolution growth, and at the very, very start of our business, we knew every client back to front. Like if you told us that you were petrified about, a bridal shower or something this Friday and you didn't know what was going to be served and you don't know what you're going to eat, and we supported you through that with the tips or whatever coaching, the next week at check-in, we would say, how's the bridal shower? Like, how did it go? How was the food scenario? Just stick to your goals, et cetera, et cetera. When you scale and you're working with, many, many thousands as opposed to just few hundreds or even tens per coach, that entire relationship changes because you just can't scale with the same level of service, and you always try and maintain your quality, but something's got to give when you're going from like 0 to 100 real quick. And I think that's what happened in this scenario.
Yeah. So ASOP as well, they just sold for like 3.7 billion. Have you been paying attention to
A little bit. I've
yeah.
actually been quite invested in the BWX collabs, which they were 50.1% in Zoe Foster Blake's go-to skincare. So they were her primary investor, and they just collapsed. So she's obviously like they're fairly independent of them, I'm fairly sure, in terms of like manufacturing and marketing and stuff. It's separate to their investment, but that was a massive collapse as well, and like obviously domino effect onto other businesses. So there's some that's obviously the ASOP thing would have been massive win all round, and then there's others that are just like not quite getting through this time.
what's the like if you reflect back on Equolution stuff and like you scaled out as quick as you guys have, was there beauty in it keeping it like a little bit smaller? Because I think about us in terms of staff right now, and like we're a lot more of a steady company, still ambitious to grow, but where's the fine balance of let's take over the world and like this is like a happy place for us?
Yeah, look, I think that also a big part of that comes down to founders' vision. So I think the founders, dreams for the business and the brand, and then the logistics kind of, they partner, like they sit together, but they are kind of reflected on as two separate things. You need to be okay from a founder perspective in that happening? Like, does that align with you? Is that what you want for the business? And is the potential downside, does that align with, is it greater than the upside type thing? So I think there's a founder's vision piece, and then I think there's the whole, well, then how do we make that happen piece, that kind of go hand in hand. For me, when I think about that, that's why I left. A big part of why I left, I just couldn't see that in the context of what we did. And I think the minute you lose faith in the dream, it's not your dream anymore, it's someone else's sort of thing. So that for me was where I started to become unstuck as a founder. I just had this sense, and I'm hoping like it's something that in time, like maturity, have all that chapter closed and everything like that, I'll be able to explain. But for me, whilst I was going through that phase, the upsides were obviously incredible. Like, we created a really successful business, but inside me was this sense of something's wrong, like something is wrong. And I could see this blowing up. And usually if you're like entrepreneurial, I know you're exactly the same, you run risks all the time. Every day there's a new risk usually. And, you're risking a lot for the vision. So when you start to question that vision, you don't have that drive to take those risks throughout the journey.
Yeah, and I think if you lose like a little bit of passion and a little bit of fun of it, like staying after 5 and working to 11, like that doesn't really happen, does it? You just sort of get to 5, like, yeah, fuck it, I'm off.
Yeah. You need to you really need to see it. Like, you need to see that destination and like really believe in it. And I think sometimes for some people, I can see that for my current businesses, but I saw the customer before I saw that vision in the last Equolution scenario. Okay, so I was like, I don't know if it's in the best interest of the customer. I think we're cutting a corner. That's what I felt. But yeah,
All right, so you're in the final stages of launching your new business venture.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or what's going on?
You're talking about the Big Appetite tech move, or the WeTrain stuff? WeTrained is so cool. Like, it is so cool. It's taken so long to like get it up running and to live. I think what started as like an idea before I had Big Appetite has drastically, the core's still the same, but the method to the madness is still the same, but a lot of the logistics have changed a lot just based on the fact that I've now spent 18 months face to face with my customer every single day. Like, you learn so much just from like peeling off those layers like an onion type thing with your customer, getting into the nitty gritty, drawing comparisons, connecting dots, what's the same, what's indifferent. We've signed a couple of licenses already, which is really cool. So basically the business, like, it's got pre-launch revenue type thing and validation, which is really cool because I believed in it. I'm the founder of this.
Proof of concept? POC?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Proof of concept.
We learned this the other day.
You did?
Yeah, from Ken.
I love how you just like, Logo.
Yeah.
We learnt this.
He was hitting me with all these acronyms. I'm like, oh, what do those mean?
Yeah, proof of concept. Correct. So we have signed a couple of licenses with a couple of businesses that I think this will like fundamentally change the way that they do things. Basically, the space that I'm in, like, WeTrained streamlines a lot of business processes and works as like a management tool as well as a customer experience platform for their end client as well. So there's sort of two sides of it. There's like the ability to run your business and then also the ability for their end client to have a really good customer experience. They're not opening Google Drive docs and filling out spreadsheets with their check-ins and all that kind of stuff. So it does make that experience a lot better. So in terms of like the problem solution, it's such a great concept, and I've had I've been blessed to be able to work with the customer one-on-one. In terms of timeline, we're in development at the moment, and I feel like I know by the end of the year it will be out there. So that's really exciting. And we've been investment backed as well, which is also really exciting because, I mean, you can believe what you're doing through and through, but trying to convince a board of people is like a different story. but yeah, it's happening. So
everyone thinks their own kid's special, don't they?
So true. My kid's the smartest in school, but
look, he just started walking.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's really exciting. And I kind of knew that this was the next step. Like, I feel health, fitness, and technology will always have my heart. And I think that's like really where all my interest and investments and stuff will go in the future.
Yeah, that's exciting. So
Yep.
we're like in the process of the initial early stages of doing an app. It's nothing
Yeah.
YKTR related, and it'll be with a different business partner. But it's
Yeah.
just, and it's cool like having you here because you've already been through the process. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey Jay, what's going on here?
Yep.
So it is exciting because
Yeah.
like I think when you get into business after a while, you understand scalability, and like people will pitch you ideas and pitch me ideas, and if you don't see scale in it,
Definitely.
you don't want to kill their dream straight away. But I think it's something we both look for, and there's nothing more scalable than tech, is there?
100%. How are you finding working in partnership?
Yep, good.
Yeah.
Good, yeah. I'm like, after chatting with the app guys, like my mindset's always been like, I want to own a chunk of stuff and I want it to be done my way.
Yeah.
But now I've got some brand deals that I do with different people, like a betting agency. We're about to sign a podcast deal with this company. It's nice to roll into something that's already organized when you've been
So true.
been the person that's driven everything for so long, for
Yep.
4 or 5 years. Like, I think if you're not a management person, that type of stuff starts to drain you. So it's
Yeah.
nice to plug into systems
Yep.
and processes and good companies that
Things that are already.
you just go in and give you a list and like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah. And you also as well sometimes can become so just, used to the things that you do and can't really see outside of that because you've got no reason to like challenge what is working for you, but then you can see it being done better by
Yeah.
someone else in a different way. And you're like, oh yeah, I'll take that. Like, to be honest with you, my mindset when it comes to business and leadership has really like drastically shifted over the years from when I was in like the peak of success with Ecolution, like right before I left. I really was like, this is the path. It's my way, or our way, Amal and I. We're going to do it our way. This is like our plans, et cetera, et cetera. And then coming into this new phase of like my business journey, I am like hungry for someone that is smarter than me and better and like, that sort of thing. Whereas before I didn't see the beauty in that because I thought I was the
smart-
driver.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh girl, you got so much to learn and I'm hungry to learn, as opposed to, sort of a bit, not against it, but I'm just not as sort of open as previously.
Yeah, I think I'm in that same sort of
Yeah.
point now where we've sort of had discussions where our next, I don't plan on hiring anyone for YKTR for the next little bit, but the next person has to be like smarter
Gun.
than me or way more senior than me, and we're happy to pay extra for that or pay them what they're worth. That's probably
Definitely.
the best way to put it.
Yep.
But like the phase of like, oh, you're my mate, let's just try and I'll build you up and that keeps me at the top, and if you go up like that, I think that's an egotistical thing that I had to get over.
100%.
But I think that's the way that you grow. And I heard Richard Branson say it the best. He goes, like, your job as an entrepreneur is create vision, and then you hire A+ people, and then you just get the fuck out their way.
Yeah.
And you let them do their thing. So
Yep. I got really frustrated at that when I, that whole wearing all the hats when I first started Big Appetite, because obviously I'd come from a background of having like a really big team and then moved into wearing like so many hats. And like, it was really hard on my self-confidence because there was things that I just wasn't doing well, but like, that's okay. Like I've really come to sort of learn that that's where you task delegate. And even though in theory that sounds like a really like common sense application, like you just naturally just hire someone that can do a job, you kind of feel as the founder or the lead driver sometimes that you have to take on all this and you don't do everything great. And that's not really good for your confidence.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think if you're a visionary, like I feel like we are, like
Yep.
tasks kind of like drag us down.
Totally.
Yeah. And tasks will
I'll
tell me to
tell
do
the
something, but
idea.
no.
You guys
go do it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree. I think, I've said to you in terms of like this current phase, keep the stress low, keep the team lean.
And one of the key points that I remember looking around, I interviewed Valentine Ozic. He runs a brand called I Love Ugly in New Zealand, and he'd spent some time with Supreme over in America, and they had like 7 staff members.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so one of the biggest brands, and I think they sold to LVMH. I'm not too sure.
Yep.
But he said their office was like, there's no alcohol in there. There was like, everything was healthy and
Yep.
water. They set up their environment to success. And I remember being on the podcast and looking back, and I had like 6 or 7 people in and like,
You're
we
like,
ain't Supreme.
Yeah.
Just going like that. I'm like, oh
Oops.
shit.
Oh
that's
shit, I
crazy.
got to do some restructuring.
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, behind the scenes at the moment, there's a lot of massive companies that are making some heavy redundancies. And I think obviously at the end of the day, for a lot of these big businesses with stakeholders and, you know, shareholders aboard, etc., it's like probably a profit and loss thing. Like they're probably just running, you know, short of cash on a monthly, and they've just got to do what they got to do. But I also think maybe it's the way that the culture and mentality in business is also moving as well. Maybe a bit reflective of that, you know, people once upon a time used to pride themselves on like walking into the office and doing the grand video of like rows and rows of desks and, you know, everyone productively working. And now it's kind of like, well, there's a cost at the other side of that, and let's reduce that cost, you know.
Oh, so stressful. But like, yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of it will tap into like the social media culture. So like our parents growing up used to watch TV shows, and it was
Yep.
like the white picket fence.
Yeah.
And they wanted it. We grew up watching like Friends and Seinfeld.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we were okay to live in apartments and be,
Yeah.
now everyone's on their phones and they see people sort of traveling around the world. Like someone who's locked into their job for a lifetime.
Doesn't look as appealing anymore.
Nah.
Whereas back in the day, that was the goal. You know, you get a really good paying job and you work your way up the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's how my parents have lived, and
Yeah.
they've basically same jobs until they're about to retire.
Yeah.
So like, and I think that's starting to change too. So contracting, and there's so many different options, but kind of segues nicely into what we're going to talk about today in terms of AI. Obviously I'm excited about it. You're excited about it.
Yep.
I talk to people about it and they're so fearful of it. And I always imagine this would have been like when the internet first come around, or like
Yeah,
when
well-
social media, where we were quite old enough to understand what was going on. Like we were obviously like kids or teenagers by this time that happens, but there's enough evidence there that we can look back on and learn from, that's coming into this next little phase now. So
For sure.
question, as an entrepreneur, how do you see AI?
I think it makes a lot of jobs redundant. So I think from a cost perspective, there's a massive opportunity there to capitalize on it versus hiring, you know, a different headcount or whatnot. It also allows businesses to like better utilize their staff, because some of the traditional tasks that AI are doing really well are things that are probably quite tedious for a lot of roles. Like even for me, like, you know, I'm best in a leadership position, but often I find myself like mucking around with copywriting or writing an email marketing piece or something like that. And often AI is not 100% accurate. Like you get it back and you're like, if you're a perfectionist particularly, you would want to change things, or maybe you've got a different view. It kind of confidently spits things out, but it isn't always like 100% in alignment with you and your philosophies, practices, etc.
It's kind of like the average of information that's collected.
100%.
Yeah,
I notice this a lot, obviously being in like the health and fitness space. Online coaches have to be really, really careful, because there's a science in online coaching and there's a science in nutrition, training, etc. And this is a general kind of spit out of information. It's not high level. It's kind of overview, conversational, talking to, I guess it depends what you ask it as well. If you specify science-based or something like that, it can pull statistics, but I think everyone has their own way of doing things, their own philosophies and beliefs. And if you just do a direct copy and paste, you might lose an element of you. So I can see many, many upsides from an entrepreneurial perspective, but I also think that it provides an ability to cut corners, which can be quite dangerous.
What do you mean by that?
So I think, you know, if you've got someone there that's not like vetting what it spits out and like saying, does this align with our brand and our tone of voice? And you've got to, the thing with AI, especially like something like ChatGPT, for example, you have to ask it the right questions. You know, the right questions will lead to a more refined answer. An example, for instance, you know, give me something in a professional tone of voice that's under 100 words. You know, like you'd have to really specify to get accuracy in return. And I just find if you're doing like a general question, you'll get a general answer, you'll copy and paste it, and it won't align with the vocals of your brand, which can be a detriment. So I think that's sort of the cutting corners element of it, is that it can be quick and easy, but it's like, what does that all add up to from an outsider looking in terms of like your brand? Like how does the tone of voice change, and you know, is it you anymore?
Yeah, that's really interesting, because if we think about like social media in 2013, we didn't know we were getting marketed to. And Instagram now everyone's matured in that platform. We can see it. We can spot an ad from a mile away.
100%.
And people have to hashtag ad and put it in.
Yep.
Now, right now, there's a good time where people can sort of get away with chat GPT and sort of blogs and posts like that. But over time, it's going to look pretty obvious, isn't it?
I'm starting to see it with my clients. Like we obviously, we do a couple of workshops and whatnot on AI and chat GPT, just trying to be like sort of ahead of the game. I can see when a client's used it. Like I can see the flow. It's very kind of like, especially for email marketing and things like that, it's very like intro, body, conclusion. It will use things like conclusively or in summary and things like that as if you're writing like a high school essay. I fear for the high school students and teachers because I think, I don't know how you're going to govern that. You know,
I think there's programs that can read it, but then it's always going to be like I'm a drug dealer. I'm trying to sneak stuff into the country, and then you're going to catch up to it. And eventually they find new ways. I think that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. But I think asking the right question is pretty imperative. I think always remembering things like, you know, tone of voice, like what sort of tone do you want? I think then giving like, you know, regulations. I want a headline, I want a paragraph, I want an email from this perspective, and then adding, you know, any sort of detail that aligns with your business. I want science-based, I want cheeky and fun, like that type of thing as well. I think it really, like the result lies in the question.
It's funny you say that because sometimes I write an email and I'm just like, how do I make this email sound less aggressive? And then copy and paste it and put it in. So I think as an entrepreneur, you're going to get a bit more bang for your buck. At the end of the day, I think people still want to work with people.
Yes.
And there's ideas with there. But say if someone's on $80,000 and their task was to do 5 different tasks, that might get up to 15 now. But it's not going to take that person any longer. But we're going to get a bit more bang for your buck. So
definitely.
I think that's a good way to look at it too.
Yeah, for sure. I actually, one of my advisors sent me this marketing, I don't even know what AI marketing. It was basically a video experience. He sent it to me yesterday. I'd never seen anything like it. He's like, tell me what you think of this. Basically, it was a campaign type thing where the AI avatar was introducing herself as the avatar for the brand, and she was sort of talking about, so you know, our company XYZ, as you know, it was a wine business, and she was saying, you know, wine is something, you know, we cheers and we enjoy experiences over a glass of wine, and we want you to be able to. And she introduced herself as the avatar for the business, so she kind of had like her own persona, and it was, her hair looked incredibly real. Her face looked so real. It was just the mouth that was like a little bit like sort of
out of scene.
Yeah, it was
like
just
an old karate movie.
Yeah, you know, like those old like puppets with the it was just a little bit like that. But the transparency was there. She was introducing herself as an AI avatar for the company. And he's like, what do you think? And I said, to be honest with you, I've just had like a brain fart on this because I feel as though I just saw the future. Like I just think that could be something that, like, you know, similar to how the NRL teams have got like mascots and things like that. Maybe brands from a marketing perspective are going to have like an avatar spokesperson that you can just sort of like punch in, we want you to talk about XYZ, and it content creates on the business's behalf. Because when you think about content creation, you know, this whole setup costs money. Editing costs money. Editing takes skill that not everyone has, sort of thing. So this is a way forward that makes content creation accessible, and it might not suit everyone. And one thing I did say to my advisor yesterday, I said, like, I think this is a slippery slope. I said, I think as a business, there's maybe a place for this, but it can't be everything, because once you start having AI represent your vocals by way of copywriting, you know, avatar speaking, video content, etc., it's like, where the people at? And that's the shit that sells. People sell connections sell. Yeah. So I thought it was just so interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like, we obviously we're talking about keeping your staff lean. And say last year we would have spent like $275K over the course of a year on like full-time producers and full-time content creators, and that's just what we did at the time. Like a lot of the times that cost I was paying for that, I can get that right down.
Totally. Right
down. So obviously more margin in your business that you can spend on different things, product development, marketing, whatever you want. Yeah. But I think it's going to speed up. And now content creators are kind of like, I think of influencer marketing back in 2013, and people just take brand deals because they've never really got them before. Now they got to a point, now we're at the peak where influencers are sort of turning down brand deals because they feel like they're like a little bit too big. Yeah. I think content creators are following that same path where if I was a vlogger back in 2015 or a videographer, because there wasn't many of us, I'd have to go out and seek jobs, or I'd go to a gym and go, hey, can I film something free for you? Now the world's come towards content creators, and like they're getting like a little bit more confident now because there's a supply and demand issue. So they're starting to turn down jobs. But what I find is like I think AI is going to be the regulator for that. We're just going to bring them back down to neutral. So in saying that, what I'm trying to say is like I think people still need to be good people on their way
and
up.
have a work ethic, and like there's still human skill. I don't think will ever truly be replaced by machinery. I think it's things like that. But I feel like, you know, AI is not going to drive a business entirely. You know, I don't think. I think subject to the business, but I still feel like we're not going to get outweighed by tools just yet. You know, I think there's bits and bobs that we could aid and assist in the business side of things and like productivity and all that kind of stuff. But I still think there's a place for people.
What's some advice for employees, people that aren't entrepreneurs, that might hear that AI is going to make people redundant? What do you think they should be doing?
I think they should learn to utilize it within their role rather than let it overtake their role. So let it make them a more productive asset for the business rather than the business saying, oh, we can do that instead of that person. Instead, the founder, the business owner will look, or the operator will look and say, this person's just been made 10 times more valuable with AI.
Yeah, I think so too. Because if you're like intuitive and like if you understand AI is coming and you can replace your job with AI, which is going to be a little bit hard, but if you can show that you can actually double or triple your work capacity for the same price, I think you become a lot more valuable to the founder or to your boss, because all of us don't have time. That's like our number one issue in business. So if you're someone who's gone out their way to show a bit of initiative to learn AI, which can make you do your job a little bit quicker, if you start looking around in your staff, you'd be like, yeah, that's the person that I want to keep around, because there's something new that's going to be coming and new after that. And if you're always a person, I feel like you're always going to be safe. Because I used to think everyone should run a business. I don't think that anymore. I wouldn't wish to stress it on anyone, but some people like switching off at 5 o'clock and going home and
100%.
watching TV. So
100%. I think, you know, even Sarah and I work together, and I think she sees enough to know that she doesn't want it. We've had this conversation before. Like, the grass is not always greener, and I think the more that freedom, you know, financial freedom and freedom to travel and all that kind of stuff is starting to become desirable for people. For a lot of people, that's actually not possible when you have a business. You know, like my partner, Matt, he owns a business, but him leaving it for X amount of time gives him, you know, no financial sort of stability for that period of time. He really has to just forego revenue because he works with his hands. And like, even though we've got a lot of cool businesses out there that are sometimes self-sufficient or, you know, have a team, you've got e-commerce that can run from anywhere in the world. It's not all businesses out there. Business owners, there's still a lot of traditional, you know, roles out there, and no person means no income. So I think we've been, like, entrepreneurship has been glamorized a lot on social media, but I think what hasn't been shown is that there's still a lot of things that you're required here to, you know, in the actual location, or, you know, just not focusing on travel or yourself for a minute to get the optimal outcome. And then second to that as well, not everyone has the ability to be able to that's duck off. And it takes time. It doesn't, you know, I'm a year and a half into Big Appetite, and it's where I was last business in maybe about year 4. And I feel like it's flown, and you'd say it's early days, but 2 years just giving it 120% every day is like, it's pretty exhausting. And I can see the points where I could have just like kind of given up. But had I not done it before and know exactly that this was part of the journey, it would have been far more daunting if that experience didn't happen.
I listened to a great podcast with Tim Ferriss and Kevin Kelly. Do you know who he is?
No,
he
I don't.
read 1,000 True Fans. He's pretty good author, but he talks about taking sabbaticals. And it's important, like if you're a founder and you're into entrepreneurship and work so hard, those sabbaticals can sort of make you grow and be better, and sometimes do things that are not really required in the industry. And like, I know you like to work hard. Would you see yourself taking like big chunks of breaks to go off and do different things that you align with? Like, does that sort of stuff inspire you?
It does. It's what I'm working towards. And like, I kind of had to like erase where I'd come from, because I did have that luxury at Equolution. Like, we did lots of international trips and could just take our laptop and log in for meetings, and we weren't like the productive asset in the business by way of like making the wheel turn. Like, we were leading the growth and the direction and revenue driving and campaigns and stuff, not actually servicing, right? So though that had all been replaced, and that was, you know, there was like 20 something staff in that business, which gives you the ability to be able to go off, but pretty much just had to scratch that. You know, that's not the reality of now. You're in a startup world, and I hope that, you know, year 3, year 4 does give me that. You know, I've already taken like dividends and stuff like that, and that's also like a bit of a luxury. And I just feel like with every milestone, you understand that it's only going to get better with the harder you work. So I knew that going into it.
Yeah. That's exciting. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else you've seen in the business world that we can wrap this podcast up with?
Yeah, I actually had a little bit of a success story to share with you, which was really awesome. So I've got two clients. They're just two blokes from country Australia. They created a skincare brand. It's called Phrase Skin. Anyway, they started with one product, a lazy man mask, and then they eventually brought in another 2 because they thought, we're just going to sell the one mask, and didn't quite create the customer experience and like average order value that they sort of had in mind. So they brought out the 2 other products. Anyway, they're just about to launch, and one of our strategies, when I first met them, they were very like out of touch with them and their branding. So the branding was sort of geared towards a male that they didn't quite resonate with. So it was kind of like, you go on their website and there was like a male model with like a diamond earring, and like these fellas are like, they're from country Australia and they're down to earth and, you know, happy-go-lucky, easygoing, etc. There was no like sort of alignment. And we kind of got to the core of like why they started their business, and they started it because they wanted to normalize skincare for like the Aussie guy. You know, they're tradies. They were like Nick and mum stuff, you know, girlfriend stuff, all that kind of jazz. And they wanted to create something that just like kind of normalized it. It was accessible. It wasn't too expensive. Wasn't fancy high end like Aesop type stuff where it's like, you know, kind of on trend. It's like, it's for the guy. Like, you'd pick it up and feel like, this is for me. This is not my missus stuff. Anyhow, so we kind of aligned. I said to the boys, I'm like, the path that you're on, it's not you guys, but what you were onto in terms of where you've come from and the reason why you brought this product into the market. Like, there's a whole other market out there for that. There is tradies left, right and center in Australia. They come home, they're dirty. They don't really know what to do with their skin. I even asked like my boyfriend and my brother, like, what do you do for like skincare? And like, oh, we don't really know. I don't know.
I do nothing.
Yeah. Like, you know, all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely, when there's that, you know, grey area and area of unknown, there's an opportunity sort of thing. So I said to the boys, like, similar to sort of like the uninspired, unemployed, I'm like, use your personalities to like drive this brand. So it came through all of the marketing. So we did like marketing slogans like grouse skincare for the Aussie bloke, and like just started to bring that language and persona through the brand. Their brand story is like 2 tradies from country Australia. They quit their jobs. They took a ticket to the Gold Coast, set up shop there. That's where they're living now because they think that the environment is better suited for executing a business.
Yeah.
And they've invested their life savings into this. And I'm like, there's a headline in that. So we punched the story out. News.com picked it up. And they've got like a piece coming out on news.com and then also potentially Channel 7 as well, which is just like, something like that is just like the little head start that you need in launch. But all of that was organic, and it just came from branding. Like essentially like, who are we? What are we doing? Who are we doing it for? And why? And making sure it sort of aligned to the founder and their true values, as well as capitalizing on a unique selling proposition as well. So I feel like that was a really good case study, and like, you don't need fancy like PR agencies and all that kind of stuff. You know, in some cases you just need to find what is like newsworthy, and also as well what is like relatable. And I think that goes down to like the traditional fundamentals of marketing as well. It's like, people want to be able to relate, they want to be entertained, engaged with, inspired, like that sort of thing. That gets lost sometimes.
Yeah, and that's also content too. Like I look at the YKTR like a little bit. Oh, shout out to, when do they launch? Sorry. Have the boys already launched?
They're launching next week.
Oh, that's exciting. Shout out to the boys.
Yeah, the boys. The slogan is certified by the boys of Phrase Skin. Everything's just cool. I'm just so happy with how it, you know, it's just in alignment. It's them. It's not someone else now. It's like, it's them. It's super cool. But yeah.
But like I think when you talk about authenticity, it sort of really sticks out, and especially in a world where everything's fake and we're using filters and chat GPT to write things. I think people that are like real always going to stick out. And what someone made me a comment the other day, and they said, "I'm glad the boys left because it feels like you're you again to me." And like this is like the type of content I like to make, and we fell in a phase where we're like it's Magic Round this week. We done a big vlog last year, and we're in clubs and fucking girls' asses and shit floating about.
Yeah, true.
It's like it was fun.
That is funny. Hey, when you sometimes like you know what, if you ever want like a bit of a reality check and to be happy for where you are, you should always go back in your archives on your Instagram, and you can see the points in time where like you know on your archives in like stories and stuff. You can see where you lost yourself. Like that ain't me. That ain't me. You know, like I was telling a girlfriend this morning, actually, we're talking about Apple Watches because I'm obsessed with mine. And I said, oh yeah, I sold my Rolex. And she's like, you sold your Rolex? And I was like, it's not me. It wasn't me. Like, I don't know. Just kind of started to feel disconnected from my things and like my life at one point, you know? And I think you can look back on times and say, oh, that was that moment that like it wasn't me.
That I turned into a gronk.
That no one liked me and I was an asshole.
Yeah. All right. I think it's a good way to wrap up the podcast. But guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be back on.
Yeah. We'll do a podcast in the next 2 weeks. Get back into the Q&As.
Beauty.
All right. See you later.
Bye.